While the world back then was focused on the loudest, flashiest, and baddest bikes on the block, some awesome under-the-radar motorcycles were quietly dominating the old streets. These bikes looked tame, but surprisingly packed more power and force that surpassed their look. These are the 15 rarest sleeper motorcycles of the 1960s. Starting with number 15, the Bridgestone 350 GTR. This particular bike came from Bridgestone, yes, the same Bridgestone popularly known for its quality tires. When they first decided to produce bikes in 1967, people didn't take them seriously because they weren't known for making motorcycles. But things soon took a 360-degree turn after seeing what this bike could do. It had a 346 cubic centimeter twin-cylinder two-stroke engine and a 6-speed gearbox. At a time when most bikes were either rocking just 4 or 5 gears, it could zoom through the streets at 95 miles per hour, and starting the motor of this bike was easy with just one prod of the kickstart lever. Shifting through gears on this bike, as smooth as butter. Now, one major concern riders had about this particular bike was the issue of the neutral being placed below the first gear instead of between the first and second. But they made up for that with their modest styling, which consisted of tall seats and a plush suspension that guaranteed a comfortable ride. Although Bridgestone wasn't among the top 4 dogs of the Japanese motorcycle industry, it still didn't stop them from adding serious precision and innovation that left people amazed. Unfortunately, after producing about 9,000 units of the 350 GTR, Bridgestone decided to stop producing motorcycles in 1971 and focus solely on tire production. Although quite a number of these motorcycles were made in that short period, it still didn't stop them from being scarce to collectors today who want to get their hands on one. There were contributing factors like the slow sales because people didn't find the bike as appealing as other two-stroke bikes, the war and financial issues after production, and the low maintenance of any surviving one. So it's pretty hard to get your hands on a well-maintained version of this bike, but if you ever find one, then know that you got yourself a real gem that most won't expect to see coming. Number 14, Suzuki T20. The Suzuki T20, also known as the Super 6, is another bike that didn't look like much, just another lightweight Japanese bike at first glance. But once you twist that throttle, those thoughts will be gone in seconds, like they never existed. This bike was one with a 247 cubic centimeter two-stroke twin-cylinder engine, which doesn't sound like anything special until you find out that it could rev up to 7,500 revolutions per minute and hit a top speed of 94 miles per hour. Something else that people least expected from this bike was its 6-speed gearbox, which was unheard of at that time. This feature is the reason why it got nicknamed the Super 6, and trust me when I say that it lived up to this name. Most two-stroke engines back then required the user to mix oil and gasoline before filling the fuel tank, which could be messy and even end up reducing the bike's performance. But unlike these other bikes, the Suzuki T20 had an injection system known as the Posy Force, which included an engine-driven oil pump coupled to the throttle, designed to provide the right amount of oil needed at the current revolution per minute. So all you had to do was fill it, ride it, and enjoy the performance. The fuel economy of this bike was another outstanding factor about it. You could go as far as 16 to 20 kilometers per liter filled, and that made it a fuel-efficient bike for a bike of its class. Back then, it was something you could easily see, but today, clean, well-maintained versions of the T20 are rare and prized because they take the leading number on every collector's list. But apart from the T20, there is another bike that is competing for the top spot on every collector's list. Number 13, Piaggio Vespa All-State Cruiser. Let's be honest, when most people see a Vespa, they look down on it and conclude that it can't do much. They don't see speed, power, or performance when looking at it. But when it comes to the Vespa All-State Cruiser, it changed their mindset about Vespas. The history behind the Vespa All-State Cruiser is such an intriguing one. Back in the 1960s, Piaggio teamed up with an unlikely brand, which was no other than Sears in the US, to sell Vespas under the All-State brand. This was a move to get the Piaggio Vespa into the American market, where people weren't conversant with Italian engineering, and this worked out perfectly. The design of this scooter was charming, just like every other scooter out there, with its curvy metal bodywork, low step-through frame, enclosed engine, and tiny wheels. It came in soft, pastel colors like baby blue and sea green that captured the attention of anyone it cruised by. This bike was like an old lady's bike, or just something you would run errands with. But the power it released from its engine was the complete opposite. It had a 125 cubic centimeter two-stroke engine that could hit a top speed of 47 miles per hour, which was not bad for something that decent. Something quite economical about this bike is that it could go as far as 90 miles per gallon, so you don't need to worry about being stranded on the road. What gave it the sleeper status is that most people didn't expect the type of power it released for a bike that looked so cute and was small in size compared to other motorcycles. This glamorous scooter is hard to find now because of the limited production window and the fact that most owners decided to treat theirs without any respect. This bike was rare, powerful, and something beautiful to behold. Moving on to the next one. Number 12, 1969, BSA Rocket 3. When riders thought of fast bikes in the late 1960s, their mind usually went straight to sleek Japanese machines or British twin bikes. But the BSA Rocket 3, though, was one for the books, even though it wasn't allowed to show its full potential. At first glance, it didn't look like much. It had a boxy style, a tall tank, and a typical upright riding position. It seemed like something that was meant for a casual ride and nothing too serious or speedy, but the moment you twist that throttle, it's a whole different story. This bike was powered by a 740 cubic centimeter, three-cylinder, air-cooled overhead valve engine, which was a layout that was totally unexpected at that time. Most bikes either ran twins or fours, so a triple was already something special. The engine in question produced a ton of 58 horsepower and could hit speeds of 117 miles per hour. Another wild detail was the way the engine was tilted forward at about 12 degrees. This wasn't just a random decision, they did it in order to make it look different from the Triumph Trident Triple. But apart from that, this detail improved the bike's weight balance and gave it a slightly more aggressive profile if you looked closely. Unfortunately, the Rocket 3 had the bad luck of launching right when the Honda CB 750 dropped and completely changed the motorcycle game for themselves. The BSA felt old-fashioned in comparison, and with a higher price tag and some internal company struggles, it didn't get the spotlight it deserved. At the end of the day, only 27,480 units of this bike and the Trident Triple were produced, and many were either trashed or left to rot, so it's hard to get your hands on it in recent times. Number 11, BMW R27. Anyone who saw a BMW R27 back in the day would only see a tidy little single-cylinder commuter bike with a vintage look. It had that classic black and white pinstripe tank, upright handlebars, rubber knee grips, and a frame that looked like it was built more for making deliveries than burning rubber on the concrete road. Under that calm, polished exterior was a 247 cubic centimeter, four-stroke, single-cylinder engine that was rubber-mounted. This design choice helped reduce the vibration and improve the ride quality of the bike. When it came to power, it didn't do much. It made up to 18 horsepower at 7,400 revolutions per minute. While other single-cylinder bikes were making use of chains, the BMW R27 made use of a shaft final drive, which meant low maintenance, quiet operation, and much better reliability than other bikes in its league. And while it looked tame, it could cruise at 81 miles per hour all day long without breaking a sweat, something many small bikes from that era couldn't claim. Another underrated aspect was its possession of an Earl's front fork, which offered excellent stability under braking, which made the R27 feel planted and predictable even on rough roads. That, combined with the shaft drive, gave it a smoothness and refinement you just wouldn't expect from a bike this size. Only about 15,364 of these units were made, so due to their age, finding one in good, original condition can be difficult. It is now considered a collector's dream and, according to BMW, magnificent to take out for a spin, which is a solid truth. Let's take a look at the next one. Number 10, Honda CB77 Superhawk. The last thing you would expect is for a 305cc bike from the early 60s to cause a stir, but the Honda CB77 Superhawk did just that, quietly and unexpectedly. The style and size of this motorcycle were something different from what most sport bikes looked like at that time, with its simple styling, sleek compact, and chrome detailing that caught the snare of the sun at each turn. This was Honda's first sport bike, and it came with an overhead camshaft, straight twin engine that revved like it was born for the track, and truly, it was. It was a beast that cranked up about 28 horsepower at 9,000 revolutions per minute and could top up a crazy speed of 104 miles per hour, which was unheard of from any 305 cubic centimeter bike in the early 60s. Then there were the brakes. which were drum brakes that gave the bike better stopping power than a lot of bikes twice its size. That mix of smoothness, reliability, and top-end performance made it a favorite for riders who wanted speed without all the drama. Along with the brakes, it also had a good fuel economy of 60 miles per gallon, which means that you won't have to be stranded on some lonely road without warning. Most people underestimate this bike because of its looks, but it came and showed off its capabilities, and that's why it's a sleeper. Although this bike made big waves back then, it's now hard to find because many have been lost or are in rough shape. It's no surprise that this bike isn't the only one that takes lots of sweat to find. Number 9. 1968 Norton Commando Fastback. This particular bike in question had a design that many riders found strange. The long, swooping tail section, narrow tank, and futuristic body lines weren't to most people's liking, but once they saw what the bike could do, that opinion changed real quick, like it never existed in the first place. At the heart of the Commando Fastback was a 750cc parallel twin engine that produced around 58 horsepower. That might not sound wild by today's standards, but back then, it was more than enough to push the bike past 117 miles per hour. What made it feel even faster was the weight. It came in at just around 420 pounds dry, which gave it a solid power-to-weight ratio for its time. Something in particular that made the Norton Commando stand out was the isoelastic suspension, which was a system provided by Norton to resolve the annoying vibration of the British twins. This system made a huge difference. It practically made the engine easier to handle, and riders could finally enjoy the big twin power without feeling uncomfortable. This bike was the first Commando variant, and isn't something you can come across easily, as only a limited number were made before newer trims took over, making original 1968 fastbacks a real prize among collectors today. Let us have a look at the next one. Number 8. 1969 Kawasaki H1 Mach 3. Around the mid-60s, American riders were beginning to demand bikes with more horsepower and higher speeds, and Kawasaki answered them by releasing the H1 Mach 3. This bike had a minimal clean design that gave it a calm appearance, just making it the perfect surprise piece for riders who encountered it. This clean beast had a 500 cubic centimeter two-stroke, three-cylinder engine, which alone was unusual, but it was exactly what Kawasaki was aiming for in the first place. But what really caught people off guard was the power this thing produced, up to 60 horsepower. And for a bike that weighed 384 pounds in the 60s, that was pretty insane. This machine could surprisingly cover a quarter mile in 12.4 seconds at 100.7 miles per hour. Although so good, the bike ended up with a reputation for being raw and unpredictable and even got nicknamed the triple with a ripple, and that's mostly because the handling wasn't so strong and the suspension was just average. But this still didn't stop people from going for it, as everyone wanted to experience that ripple. Today, the original 1969 models are getting harder and harder to find in stock condition. A lot were raced, crashed, or heavily modified, and because of how fast and affordable it was, many simply didn't survive the chaos they created. If you find one now in good shape, it's not just rare, it's a piece of two-stroke legend. Number 7, 1966 Honda Dream CA 77. Honda set out to make every rider's dream come true with the creation of this bike, although the looks, which consisted of a boxy frame and angular sheet metals, didn't meet up with the dream. The performance, on the other hand, made up for it. Beneath the outlook of this bike lay a 305cc parallel twin four-stroke engine, capable of putting out about 23 horsepower at 7,500 revolutions per minute. While that might sound modest, it was the way it delivered that power: smooth, reliable, and confident. It could hit a top speed of 86 miles per hour, which was a big flex for Honda at that time. What made the CA77 the real deal was its unique feature, which was the electric start, and it was also equipped with a leading link front suspension, which made the bike incredibly user-friendly. Back in those days, the electric start was something that was not common on most motorcycles, especially bigger twins, so the fact that this bike had one raised the bars for Honda. This bike wasn't flashy or loud, and it had a good fuel economy that could last you 50 to 70 miles per gallon, which was fair. For riders who encountered this bike back in that time, they sure created a lot of happy memories with it that will last them quite a while. Now, to the next one on our list. Number 6, Matchless G15 CSR. If you know the Matchless brand, then you are aware that they are known to create stylish and vintage-looking motorcycles, and when it came to the G15 CSR, it was the same case. This bike was fully British, with its teardrop tank and polished chrome look. This bike was the result of a mashup between two companies, Matchless and Norton, both under the AMC umbrella at the time. The G15 CSR was built using a 745 cubic centimeter Norton Atlas parallel twin engine, and that wasn't just for show. This thing could easily push over 110 miles per hour, and it delivered a ton of torque in the mid-range, which made it feel strong and punchy in everyday riding. It also came with twin Amal carburetors, a 4-speed gearbox, and a solid frame that offered surprising stability for a big British twin. Whether you were speeding down open roads or just cruising, the G15 CSR gave you the kind of ride that made you realize it was built with serious intent and precision. But even with all this, the G15 CSR never became a major hit, especially when it came to sales. It was produced in limited numbers between 1963 and 1969, during a time when AMC, which was the parent company behind Matchless and Norton, was dealing with financial issues. As a result, not many of these bikes were made, and even fewer survived in good condition. So, with that being said, you know that finding a clean, original G15 is almost impossible, but it was one hell of a sleeper though. Number 5, Ducati Scrambler 350. When Ducati introduced the Scrambler 350 in 1968, they weren't trying to outshine the big names or make a loud entrance. They just wanted to offer a bike that could handle a bit of everything. But what riders got was more than versatility. They discovered a machine that looked laid back, but had just the right punch, agility, and attitude to face the road head-on. This bike was so incredible that it bore a 340 cubic centimeter single-cylinder, bevel-driven engine, which was surprisingly refined for its time. Through how smooth and responsive this bike was, you could see that Ducati was on another level when it came to engineering. It could achieve a horsepower of 24 at 8,500 revolutions per minute and could hit a top speed of 81 miles per hour. Even though this does not sound so impressive based on today's standards, it still doesn't change the fact that the Scrambler 350 was agile, quick, and full of character. Although it was mostly used as a commuter bike, it still offered the riders comfort. However, due to its status as a commuter bike, it has suffered a lot of wear and tear, thereby reducing the number of Scrambler 350S that were in good condition. So acquiring one in a pristine condition will seem like a treasure hunt. Moving on, we have number 4, Montesa Impala 250. The particular bike didn't look like a speed demon, but it was one of Spain's most underrated performers of the 60s. Designed for both road use and endurance rallies, it had a 247cc two-stroke single-cylinder engine with about 20 horsepower, which gave it surprising speed for its size. It could cruise comfortably at over 70 miles per hour, and the lightweight frame made it nimble and fun to ride. Its design was sleek and elegant. Nothing flashy, just clean lines, low bars, and that iconic red tank. It earned a reputation for being incredibly reliable during long-distance rides. While it wasn't widely known outside Europe, it became a cult classic, and now, original units are hard to come by, especially ones that haven't been raced into the ground. Number 3, Honda CB 754. The Honda CB 754 didn't just surprise people, it changed the entire motorcycle scene. At a time when most motorcycles had 2 or 3 cylinders and drum brakes, Honda rolled out a 750 cubic centimeter inline-4 engine with an electric start and a front disc brake, features that were basically unheard of for a production bike in 1969. It made around 67 horsepower, could hit 120 miles per hour, and ran so smooth it felt like a precision instrument. The engine was reliable, the performance was strong, and it looked sharp with its clean tank, quad exhaust pipes, and bulletproof build. Riders who judged it by its calm looks got smoked on the road. Today, early sandcast models are holy grails for collectors, and finding one in clean condition, especially untouched, is tough. The CB 750 wasn't just a sleeper, it was the quiet storm that revolutionized motorcycling. Let's have a look at the next one. Number 2, Velocette Viper Clubman. This bike looked every bit like a traditional British single, but it came with factory performance upgrades that gave it a whole new level. It comprised a 349 cubic centimeter engine with a high compression piston, racing camshaft, and a megaphone exhaust that could push its speed to 91 miles per hour. It was hand-built with care, featuring a featherbed-style frame and excellent road manners. Many didn't take it seriously due to its old-school looks and modest size, but it held its own against bigger bikes. Today, clean Clubman variants are especially rare and highly sought after by collectors who know their history. Number 1, Galera 300 Bicylindrica. It's possible that most riders haven't heard of this bike. This bike was one that caught lots of riders back then off guard with its performance. It looked like a simple Italian middleweight bike with minimal styling. But beneath the simple look lay a vertical twin-cylinder engine, 4-stroke 305cc engine that was remarkably smooth and well-engineered. It produced 12.5 horsepower at 5,800 revolutions per minute, which might not sound like much, but for its weight and era, it delivered shockingly sprightly performance and excellent mid-range pull. Gilera focused on refinement over raw power. The bike had a 4-speed transmission, solid suspension, and elegant Italian craftsmanship that gave it road manners well beyond what people expected from a sub-350 cubic centimeter machine. For years now, Gilera hasn't been in production, so getting your hands on this gem is extremely hard. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you in our next video.